All right. So, hi everyone. My name's Hani. Bear with me as I try to figure this out. Um, but yes, basically, so my name's Hani. I'm going to be joining you over the course of the year, trying to kind of cover your reflective practice sessions, but I'll also be in some of your studio sessions, so some of the review sessions that you'll be having. And as we get through the year, the main intention that I have for these sessions is to try and get you to push yourselves to think a little bit more critically, think about what it means for you to be a designer, an architect, or just anything in between, whatever you kind of end up taking, your journey ends up taking you. The main goal behind all of this is to really help you think about the world around you, but also to help you think a little bit more about how you fit into it within the bigger picture. Because a lot of the time you can end up spending so much time focusing on how do you make a nice, beautiful object or a nice, beautiful building, but you actually have to think about the social context that that object exists in. And so I'll be attempting to try and do that, but I think it's something that's going to be really good fun to try and work out as we go along. And the more I hear from you, the better. So I'm going to try to leave these questions or these sessions with questions as we go along. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a flavor of what that looks like for me now. So if you just give me a second while I choose to share my screen. So yeah, welcome. This is week one. This is the introduction. So yeah, in the last 2 years, we have lived through a series of what we would call unprecedented events. These events have been happening at all sorts of scales. And they seem to have been happening non-stop. For those of you who are plugged in, for those of you who are on Twitter, you'll probably have a sense of how non-stop it is. And obvious examples of this are recent Black Lives Matter protests, which I mean almost 2 years ago now. So, or even the more recent kind of Sarah Everard case, or the kind of ever-present ongoing global pandemic. There's been kind of the steady rumble of the side effects that are still going on, and so the idea of that combined with like the ever-present threat of climate change, there's a lot going on. And there's also within that a lot of space for you as designers, whether that's architecture or whether it's through product design or anything in between, or even as artists, as practitioners, there's still space for you to find how you can be kind of positioned within that, but also how you can contribute to solving some of these issues. So, I mean, of course, there's not been any kind of real shortage of conversations around, well, the role of designers or the role of design today, what it is about, what it can do, and what it is doing. But through these conversations, I actually really want to make sure that I'm constantly asking you, the students, and even myself as this kind of person who's coming in, to encourage you to really reflect on why and how we're here, right? Like, why do we design the way we do? Why do we in certain ways, and why do we change the ways that we design depending on context? And over the course of this kind of coming few weeks, months, I'm going to really be trying to draw on a pretty wide, pretty tangential sometimes, a set of ideas, disciplines, and cultures that I think will really be good to get you thinking about some of these questions that I'll be throwing your way. And there'll always be questions to kind of keep you engaged and to make sure that this feels more like a conversation, not just a long monologue. So yeah, the intention, or at least the intention for me and the rest of the teaching team, is to eventually help you carry some of these ideas into not only your work that you'll be doing in your studio, but also carrying that into the way that you even think about how you position yourself, and thinking about where you want to go and what you want to do and how that fits into your kind of perspective on things. But the most important thing is also to make sure that it gives you the opportunity to bring in your own center and bring in your own experiences and personalities into the work that you carry out, regardless of context. Yeah, so to tie it in all together, like I said, I'll be doing some questions, whether they are kind of directly related to what we're doing or not. There'll be questions, so to get you talking. So some of the questions I might ask you will include things like these 3 questions. These are kind of some questions that could tie everything together. So what is design capable of? Are there any limits to the active designing that we can, that the active design can actually do? Is there like a sort of upper edge? Is there a ceiling that you can't break through once you get to a certain level of design? Are there any limits to what you can design? Can you design as much as you can design buildings, chairs, offices? What else can you design? Can you design things like policy? Can you design things like laws? Can you design things like research methods? There's lots of things that we can think about here that are not just about the object, but rather also about systems and frameworks. And that's something we can touch on a little bit, but obviously we can delve into that as much as there is the appetite for that. Other question could be, who can design? And I think this is a really important question, especially in some of the conversations that we're having here today, over the course of like thinking about who gets access to education, who gets access to the space to be able to make the decisions to design, what does it really mean to be able to design? Because the act of design is something that has been going on for so long. It's something that is, when you think about the amount of things that have gone on in the world, buildings, architecture, everything, a lot of it has an intention. You can even say it has been designed to be in a specific way. But why does it mean that? What makes the difference between someone who builds their own house out of clay in somewhere in Africa versus someone who is like has the ability to be able to do that through practice and sort of education? Why is the distinction there? It might be obvious, it might not be as obvious. And I think the space in between is where the conversation can get really interesting in thinking about who gets to say who can design and who gets to say what is design, without getting too kind of existential. And then the last type of question is also could be like, why do we design? Why do we design in a specific way? Why do our certain spaces look the way that they do? Why does the most obvious and mundane stuff actually have so much history behind it? And that's part of some of the questions that we'll be asking. And I think that's really kind of important for you to start thinking about design as also as a means to investigate social norms, thinking about like, for example, why does a kitchen look the way that it does? What is the idea of the kitchen? Why is it designed in that way? What are the kind of sort of gendered norms, some of the historical ideas around kitchen and sort of domestic labor that mean that it looks like the way that it does today? Why do we have a kitchen island? Why do we have the stove next to so and so? And this is kind of an example that we can delve into later. And actually, one of the weeks we do talk about that. But the idea of why do we design and why do we design the way that they do is almost central, which is why it's also really important that I bring in as many different sort of references to try and tie it all together for you in the way that we think about these things. So, I mean, these questions will kind of keep emerging in different forms, different ways as we go through the program and as we have more kind of interesting conversations. And as you all bring kind of something from your own experiences or from your own interests to these conversations, which I really, really would love to hear more about, you will also start to think about these questions, right? These questions will be always kind of ticking away in the back of your mind. And hopefully that will help you really, again, inform your perspective and inform your ideas about what it means to be a designer, an architect, an artist, a practitioner, whatever label you want to, assign to yourself as a young sort of budding design person. So this first question, I think, is basically a way we can kick things off. What does design mean to you? So this is the only question I really want you to try and answer in the discussion today. And it's sort of quite broad, right? But like, what does it mean to you? What does the act of designing mean to you? What is it about? What does it entail? What does it mean? It's pretty broad, it's pretty open, but it's really interesting to kind of get an understanding of what the actual intention of design is for you. What is design for you making really beautiful drawings and making them come to life, or is design for you the process of conversation between a client or a designer, or is it a process of community and collaboration, or is it a natural process that kind of emerges, or is it even something completely abstract? Like, tell us what you think. I'm really looking forward to hearing what your ideas about this are. But yeah, like I said, my name's Hani. You'll see my face lots of times over the course of the next few months. And I'm really looking forward to kind of, delving into some of this stuff and getting an understanding of what these things mean to you and as well. Yeah. All right. I will see you all very soon.